If you belong to a very specific subset of human beings, you are going to feel something after hearing this audio clip.
Shoo-be-doo-be-doo, sha-la-la-la, la-la. Shoo-be-doo-be-doo, sha-la-la-la, la-la.
To many of you, this has elicited nothing. To the others, I have kicked up the dregs of your soul. This is Avata Star Sue, a virtual icon who has captured the hearts and minds of kids internationally. While Sue's expansive collection of Flash games was available to kids all over the world, the only language it was available to be played in was its original Korean. However, this language barrier never stopped Sue from embedding herself into the subconscious of children across the planet. Her adorable design, slick vector graphics, and blissfully tacky fashion style was enough to compel kids to want to learn more, even if they couldn't exactly understand what the games were saying. Avata Star Sue was the mascot of iBravo.com, a Flash gaming website, and from an American kid's perspective, that's all she seemed to be. However, a closer inspection of the property reveals not only an extensive catalog of Sue-branded Flash games, but also a lengthy series of webisodes, as well as physical merchandise. Today, iBravo.com is a ghost town, plagued with errors and pages of no data. It seems Sue and iBravo itself faded away along with Flash Player. This idol star has come and gone, but the question remains, who was Sue? The answer may be clear to Korean audiences, but for the rest of us, it's still a mystery. Today, I set out to find some answers. Quick disclaimer, Sue games and related media are entirely untranslated. I made this video by myself and I do not read or speak Korean, so I will be relying heavily on Google Translate. Moreover, I will be relying on its camera feature and often with heavily stylized text. My translations will be an approximation and may be off base if any idiomatic language is used. How do I know Sue? Girls Go Games, year 2008. I spent a lot of time on this site, and my baby weeb self was a fan of all the anime and anime-inspired dress-up games in this selection, and I enjoyed going through all the discrete tabs and discovering what could be found on each one. And click through I did into the tab labeled Dolls, and then one of the folders caught my eye. Sue? Who's Sue? The picture was so cute, she looks like one of those Blythe dolls, but a cartoon. I had to know more. Exploration through the folder's games revealed, well, limited information. You could see what her deal was. She's clearly some kind of cartoon superstar, and seems to be prone into getting into wacky situations. And that's about all that an American user was able to suss out. Early Girls Go Games hosted a lot of untranslated Korean games, and for most of these the language barrier was a non-issue. Fashion simply transcends language. This applied to much of Sue's game library, but unfortunately not all. Some games were more visual and straightforward, and while an English user was a bit directionless and required more trial and error than a Korean user would, they could usually gain a complete understanding of these games with a bit of persistence. However, this was not the case for Sue's full game library, as some of these games required comprehension of the written instructions to be able to win. In this video, I set out to create a comprehensive guide to all the Sue media that can be found on the Western web. Let's begin. What does English language internet have to tell me about Sue? While there isn't much to go on about Avata Star Sue in English, there's a very brief, although enlightening wiki page. What do they have to say about Sue? Her introductory text states simply, Sue is the protagonist of the animation Avata Star Sue. That was new information to me. I didn't know about the animation. The sidebar describes her as Sue, female, 10. Wait, 10? 10? I know that it's a trope in East Asian kids media to appear older than the character's stated age, but 10 years old just really doesn't make sense. This kid has like 10 jobs and spends most of her free time dating. That's an older teen at least. I know kids grow fast nowadays, but Sue was a preteen before I was, so she doesn't have that excuse. Like, maybe sometimes she looks 10, but very frequently she does not. After this, the wiki states, Sue looks like a regular elementary school student, but she has a magic wand that allows her to change her appearance and to transform into anything she wants. This description reminds me a lot of the magical girl anime Creamy Mommy, about a young kid who uses a magic wand to transform into an older teen pop idol. If you think of Avata Star Sue as derivative of that show, then I suppose that explains the incongruous age appearance. It also explains that the wand affects the memory of everyone who witnesses it, except for the romantic interest character, Bean. This wiki is just about the only English source that directly discusses the Sue games instead of just hosting them. Well, I guess it's time to attempt to answer this question. What does Korean language internet have to tell me about Sue? As I suspected, I immediately got much more information than an English search did. Let's see what this Korean wiki page has to tell me. Wow, okay, immediately there's a lot more serviceable information here. First is that iBravo.com is a subsidiary of Hai Tai Confectionery, a company that specializes in sweets and frozen foods. All of a sudden, all of these food and cooking themed games make a lot more sense. This wiki states that Avata Star Sue was released in 2005 and popularized by a promotion on Kids Yahoo Korea. The wiki explains Sue's tendency to behave in a way that makes little sense for a girl her age as a young girl's power fantasy. A flight of fancy where you can turn into someone more respectable by general society in an instant, and yet go back to the blissful irresponsibility of being a kid whenever you feel like it. An innocent premise, but I'm just relieved that Sue never got the My Little Pony friendship is magic treatment. Sue's fashion style is stated to be derived from Lee Hyori, Korean entertainer and activist. The popularity of the franchise is stated to be widespread and enduring, and... hold on, there's a spin-off? What? Sue 2? This sequel version is called Little Patissier Sue and abandoned the idol route for a bakery-themed story and was more directly related to Hai Tai confectionery products. This reboot was apparently unpopular, which explains why it never made its way out of Korea. Back to the Sue that actually matters. The Flash games are described as notoriously difficult and called into question whether or not they're actually designed for children. I can't describe the vindication I feel by reading that. Apparently it's a meme in Korea that they're so good at esports because they all trained on Sue as kids, and I think that's really funny. A proposed explanation given for the brutal timers on some of these games is that computer performance used to be much worse as a whole, resulting in lag that would reduce the difficulty of these games to a playable level. The wiki describes these games as containing numerous spelling and grammar errors, an element which is lost on non-Korean players, as well as a number of known bugs and glitches in the Flash games. The end of the page mentions this hilarious fan animation, Sue's Human Factory, which I don't believe is actually a game you can play, but was created in 2020 to commemorate Flash Player. It's much less dark than the title and thumbnail would have you believe. The remainder of the search results are much more like the English ones, but that page alone has given me a much clearer perspective on who exactly Sue was to Korean youth. She was a digital idol created to sell candy and increase website traffic, and she did both with flying colors. But unfortunately, the kids' gaming websites that haven't been abandoned no longer host Flash games. And so the Sue catalog has faded into obscurity. They can no longer be played. Just kidding! Blue Maximus Flashpoint, Champions of Lost Media Prevention, seems to have every one of the games that I remember from Girls Go Games and then some. I'm going to do my best to translate the instructions of each of these games so you can play it yourself. I'll also grade each one in regards to their international playability. Green means easy to play with zero translation, yellow means it requires some translation assistance, and red requires too much understanding of the language to be played with a translation guide, in my opinion. This portion of the video can be seen as a guide to the Sue Flash games, and there will be a pinned comment with detailed timestamps. To find the Sue games on Flashpoint, you're going to want to search for iBravo or tag:Sue. Number 1, Dress Up Bean. This is a simple paper doll style dress up game. It's boring and has very few options. Number 2, Dress Up Sue. This is the Sue version of the previous dress up game. It's also boring but gets points for containing Sue. 3, Sue's Chocolate Candy Maker. This is a candy factory game. It's very wordy and requires interpreting instructions against a timer. The only part I could really make sense of is the peanut machine, and that's not enough to get anything done by the timer's end. Number 4, Sue's Candy Dating. A White Day themed game where you have to make the candy fall in the bin with the same name as the corresponding symbol next to the boy's face. This could be a good game if you're trying to more quickly identify Korean characters. Sue Farming, a game about farming and cooking. I've noticed that these Rube Goldberg machine type games are much more likely to be too confusing to play even with translation assistance. I have no idea which of these UI elements are interactive. I realize in retrospect that you're supposed to grow a lot more of those potatoes. 6, Sue's Makeup Makeover. This is a standard makeup game where you need to tailor your makeup looks to suit specific occasions. If you want to play this, let me save you some time by demystifying it a bit. The occasions are a 10 a.m. film shoot, a 1 p.m. avatar contest, a 3 p.m. filming of Stream Sonata, and a 7 p.m. talk show. All the elements are self-explanatory except for the brushes, which will damage your health if you use them incorrectly. From left to right, the pointed brush works on these 3 shimmering discs in our lip gloss. The fuzzy brush works on the lower rows of colors and applies shadow to the lid only. The fluffier one next to that applies shadow to the upper and lower parts of the eyes. The big brush works on these glitters and all the lower colors and works on the cheeks. Finally, the powder puff works with these foundation colors. Click the perfume bottle to finish. Number 7, Sue's Hair Makeover 2. A boy's hair makeover game. Little explanation needed, only trial and error. A fun game and a rare addition to the genre of boys' makeover games. Number 8, Sue Candy Eater. This is a sweets-themed path puzzle game. This one doesn't need much written instruction. You create a path by shifting tiles and guide Sue to get all the candies. I'm just not very good at this type of game. Why can't I get this cupcake? Sue Dating Machine. This is another path puzzle game, this time themed around dating. I was worried this one would be totally opaque, but it's much easier than I thought. You connect 2 parts of the board on either side that are highlighted, and you can change any tile to any shape to achieve that. Number 10, Sue's Witch Magic Makeover. This one was one of my favorites as a kid. This witch wants to use a magic potion to turn into Sue. The shelves from top to bottom and left to right are approximately labeled pupils, skin tone, age, male and female, character, cosmetic, body type, and face shape. Any incorrect character bottle will lead to the witch transforming into the completely wrong person. Yeah, that's Shrek. There are some offensive implications to some of the fail states in this one. I know according to the logic of the game, it's a fail to make anybody who's not Sue, but it could still communicate some negative messages to people who do have these traits. Regardless, it's still pretty fun to run through this and see all the outcomes. Number 11, Sue's Clothing Maker. A fashion designer-themed game that's simply about reaction time. You press your directional pad in the order that the numbers appear next to the clothing item, and if you do it correctly and within the zone, you pass. Too simple to be worthwhile, in my opinion. Sue Drumming Game. A DDR clone plus spacebar. Simple enough, but sounds really bad even if you're doing a pretty good job. Fortunately, it doesn't have a game over state, so I can just sit back and listen to her performance without my miserable drumming. Sue Cheerleader, a cheerleading Simon Says type game. There's no translation really necessary, but good luck telling these animations apart in quick succession. I certainly couldn't. Number 14, Sue Cake House, a cake decorating game. This one definitely needs some translation assistance, but is far from difficult. Select the correct ingredients in the top row and 1 from the bottom rows for flavor, and then proceed to decorate in the next steps. Make very sure that you actually want sprinkles before you click this. Number 15, Sue's Diet. A dieting game. Wow, how fun. This would be an innocent little educational game about nutrition and caloric intake, but that 1200 calorie goal is... The gameplay is fairly self-explanatory, but uses a timer that is, in my opinion, overly aggressive. Number 16, Sue Knitting, a knitting game. Simply press right and left on the directional pad to make a stitch and then space to change colors. This may actually be the most fun of the games I've played so far, as I actually sat and played the whole thing. 17, Sue's Ramen Shop, a ramen cooking game. Nope. No friggin' clue. This one has a lot of specific little steps that I can't really be bothered to figure out. Sue Clipmaker. I love this one. It's the music video creator. You select the set and her outfit and then hit play. There's that song. And you repeat the process again with a different combination. And again, getting a perfect score every time because you're just that great. Here's the Sue version of that boy hair game we saw before. The controls are self-explanatory, but I just can't figure out how to make her happy with the hair she gets. 20, Sue Hairstyle Makeover. This is the hair makeover game I'm more familiar with, and yeah, I still don't know how to make Sue happy. I'm sorry, Sue, I'm just not a hairdresser. I think these games are more fun if you disregard the instructions and just make whatever hair you feel like making. 21, Sue's Bakery, a matching game. This one is very visual and simple. Probably too simple for most adults to enjoy. 22, Sue's Garden, a gardening management game. This one is comprehensible enough, just use this translated instructions page as a guide. However, the translation won't help you with how fast these damn bugs will destroy your flowers. Sue Delivery Meals. God, I hate these food-based ones. This one is more straightforward at least. This one needs a bit of demystifying to play. Pay attention to the toppings on these similar-looking ramen bowls. The soup with no seafood toppings needs the hearty broth. Shrimp needs the pale broth, and octopus needs the red broth. And all of these soups need the sliced vegetable on the side. The pot stickers need the mixed greens and the soy sauce. The whatever this dish is needs curry and soy sauce. Once you can tell these apart, the game is all yours. Okay, I take what I said back. I started having fun while I was playing this. 24, Sue's Dog Beauty Salon. This one is intuitive enough to require no translation. Drag the dog to the bath and then over to the cushion to be blow-dried and then give them a trim, and put on decorations or dye their fur as requested at the beginning of the level. You get 1 success for every time you accomplish this before the cushion moves out of the screen. 25, Sue Frozen Chocolate. Yeah, sorry, I couldn't figure this one out. There's a little dress-up game at the beginning that you can enjoy on its own if you're like me and can't figure out the chocolate making portion. 26, Sue's Beauty Room. A timed point-and-click finding game with a dress-up element. This wordy instructions page isn't really needed. I think the only things that need explained is that the flashlight is used to find items under the bed and couch, the hook is used to find items behind the bed and couch, and the keys are used to unlock these 4 drawers on the left side of the room. 27, Sue the Fashion Designer. In this game, you're tasked with designing an outfit that matches the hairstyle placed on Sue in the title screen. She asks for a feminine and innocent style with the curly brown hair, a cute style that goes well with spiky hair for the one with the rose, and a sexy style for the long wavy hair. It's not really necessary to know this, however, as the game is vibes-based. 28, Sue Jewelry Designer. While I'm tempted to give this one a red rating because it's just a little too much for me to be willing to untangle, the in-game instructions are highly visual and you can spend as much time as you want looking at them. It's pretty complicated though, and I still failed even when I thought I started getting it right. 29, Sue's Tomato Factory. This one's a bit more comprehensible than the other factory games due to having slightly fewer elements. You water the tomatoes until you have 20 in the blender, and then you push start and hit this wheel until the cart is filled with ketchup packets. Despite getting the hang of this one, it wasn't enough to win. 30, Sue's Jigsaw Puzzle. 0 translation needed, just choose between 12 and 25 pieces and start the puzzle. A little underwhelming because there's only one. Jesus dude, stop! Stop staring at me! 31, Sue Clothing Patterns. A game where you color a luxury or casual hanbok. The icon on the luxury button indicates that it would have more accessory options, but all you can do is choose the color and pattern. 32, Sue Sushi Restaurant. Another one where you have to memorize specific pairs. Whitefish sushi goes on the pink plate, salmon sushi on the blue plate, and shrimp sushi on the orange plate. What is not included in the instructions, however, is how to actually make the sushi. You're on your own with that one. 33, Avata Star Sue's Beauty Maker. No translation is really needed to enjoy this timed dress-up game, but it makes things easier if you know what kind of event Sue needs to be dressing for. The 11 a.m. event is a new game preview, 1 p.m. is a lunch date, 3 p.m. is choreography practice, 5 is a movie shoot, and 9 p.m. is a formal dinner show. Despite the variety of activities, they all seem to be a date in the end screen. 34, Sue's Sneaky Snack. A reaction time game where you sneak a bite to eat in class. You move around with the directional pad to leave the view of the teacher and then click on the bag to sneak a bite. Maybe I was just too tired when I was playing it, but I didn't get the hang of this one. 35, Sue Doll Maker. In this game, you combine photographic doll elements, getting more points based on if you coordinate the garments effectively. This game gives us an idea of what the Sue doll merchandise look like. 36, Sue Musical. A rhythm game where you click the corresponding colored instrument when it comes up on the music bar. It seems easy enough, but the music bar is far enough away from the instrument to lose track of your cursor, and this only gets worse in the second level with the drum. 37, Sue's Beauty Machine. A timing game where you pull a lever at the correct time to make Sue. I don't know why I was so obsessed with these games where you either make or failed to make Sue, but I just was. This game has some of the issues with offensive implication as the Witch Magic Makeover game, but I won't pretend it's not fun to try to make all the failed combinations. And even better to see what the game counts as a partial pass. 38, Sue's Fried Wontons. A wonton cooking game. It's simple enough, just roll out the dough, fill it with stuffing, and add it to the soup when it gets golden brown. Different types of soup require different amounts of wontons. And that's it. Here's my opinion of these games. 1 star is borderline unplayable, 2 stars is functional but not fun to play, 3 stars is just a normal, middle-of-the-road flash game, and 4 stars is pretty fun. That's all up on the screen now and just reflects my personal opinion of these games, and you may disagree. If you remember playing Sue games other than this, it's very likely that you ran into one of Sue's several copycats, although it's possible that a couple games slipped through the cracks. Here's one tangential question that I had to answer during this investigation. Is the game hosting website starsue.net related to Avata Star Sue? Let's take a look. At a glance, the answer seems to be firmly no. There's no sign of Sue anywhere here. However, Sue is a Flash character, so why would they be advertising Flash games in a post-Flash internet? Let's take a look a little further back. The site's initial form is, broken. How far forward do we have to go to get some graphics? Okay, it seems like we're deep into the Monster High era. Okay, Sue games are definitely present here, only in the same capacity that they were on any other Flash gaming website. I think that's enough to lead me to a conclusion about this topic. They're related for SEO purposes only. People searching for Sue games would be much more likely to be redirected to starsue.net, a search trick which still works to this day. I mean, just look at how much Flashpoint prioritizes any Star Sue game over any of the actual Sue games. It seems like Star Sue produced a decent amount of Sue knockoff games. They use the character's likeness but are devoid of any iBravo labeling, indicating to me that these are unlicensed knockoff games. I blame starsue.net for why I hear some people refer to the character as Star Sue, even though that shortened name is never used in the games or the series. As I referenced earlier, in true online mascot style, Sue has a collection of webisodes. 50 uploaded to YouTube and 52 total claim to exist on the Korean wiki page. These were pretty cheap little web animations, although much more polished and slick compared to the standard of webisodes today. I will now cover the storyline of every one of these episodes as succinctly as possible. This whole series is available to be viewed on the Avata Star Sue YouTube channel, which I will link to in the description. Episode 1, Sue and Leah's Big Duel. The intro text quickly explains that Sue takes on two different forms, Suhee, a normal third grader, and Sue, a teenage pop idol. Sue is chosen as a presenter in a new cooking show. The episode then name drops NBC as hosting a competitive show at the same time slot, with Sue's love interest, Bien, being paired up with her rival, Leah. Sue has a cold confrontation with Bien and walks off without allowing him to explain himself. At home, Sue's mom hands her a present. It's from Bien, who wrote her a note apologizing for having to work with her rival. The shows are both broadcast, and Sue's show handily wins for ratings. Bien shows up with flowers, and Sue never apologizes for being so cold to him. Although it's ambiguous when exactly Bien dropped off the package, kind of seems like he did try to tell her about being paired with her rival. At least Sue doesn't slap him like she was considering. Anyways, Bien gives her the flowers and says Leah quit the show so they don't have to work together anymore. The end. Episode 2, The Incident at the Ball. A snobbish, handsome business heir named Jun rejects a homely girl named Lila, tearing up her love letter in front of her. Lila weeps to Sue and her currently unnamed friend, and Sue concocts a plan to get back at him. She transforms into an extremely wealthy-looking princess. Someone pointed out to me how much her wand looks like Sailor Mini-Moon's, and yeah, that's pretty much an exact copy. Princess Sue shows up to a ball he's attending, stealing his attention from rival Leah. As he approaches Sue, she rejects him, citing his snobbishness and unwillingness to talk to his classmates. Jun, never having been rejected before, is mortified. Afterwards, he seemed attempting to change his ways, awkwardly saying hello to his classmates and apologizing to Lila. Episode 3, Sue's Magic Show. Sue and her friend are playing with tarot cards. Bien walks in and says his little sister has been into tarot cards recently too, and she bursts in crying, saying that the cards told her that her crush hates her. Sue gets an idea and transforms into a magician, and Bien and her sister walk into a magician's tent that suddenly sprung up. Sue, as a magician, does a few tricks and then tells his sister to pull a card, announcing that the card she picked means that her crush likes her too. Her crush then appears in Sue's magic boxes and hands Bean's sister a bouquet. Bean and his sister walk away amazed, unsure if what they saw was real or a dream, and they notice that although the magician's tent has disappeared, the flowers remain. Episode 4, Sue's Haunted Cottage. At this point, the official translations end and the characters gain voice actors. This has the mixed benefit of being able to utilize the audio caption and translate feature, but it's likely that the remainder of these episodes could contain translation issues. Fortunately, these stories are pretty visual and the plot is easy enough to suss out just by watching. Sue and her friends go to a villa for a vacation and hear a story from the groundskeeper. The previous tenants were a famous singer and her daughter, the latter of which went missing and was found to be killed in a nearby swamp. Ever since then, he says, cries of a little girl sometimes echo through the villa. Leah laughs this off, but Sue notices a creepy little girl standing in the doorway. That night, in a sequence with some genuinely nightmarish visuals for kids media, the ghost girl appears, saying that she won't leave until she has her mother back. Sue transforms into idol form and sings the song mentioned by the groundskeeper, which the girl recognizes as the song her mother used to sing, and then Sue guides her spirit to the afterlife. That was kind of awesome. Episode 5, Christmas Eve. Sue and her friend, when are we ever going to get to learn her name, are walking together on Christmas Eve when a little kid crashes into Sue. His older brother runs up, scolding him, and the girls recognize the older kid as a classmate. The girls are invited over for dinner and learn about their sad family situation. Their mother is absent for unexplained reasons, and their father is always working and won't be home for Christmas. The elder brother reveals that his younger sibling is obsessed with Sue the pop idol and would do anything to see her in concert. Sue comes back later in pop idol form in a Santa outfit and puts on a private concert for them as a gift. Merry Christmas. Episode 6, What Happened at the Playhouse Theater. Sue is looking forward to hanging out one-on-one with Bean and is disappointed when he's obligated to watch his little brother. The little brother runs off and... Yo, what? They're just showing panties? Okay. They then go to a movie together and Bean's kid brother immediately destroys the film projector. Sue uses her magic wand to transform and... Oh my god! Why is she doing a burlesque show? Why is she shaking her ass? Why is this episode like this? The day is saved, I guess. Episode 7, Sue at the hospital. Sue has she has a cold and has to have a short inpatient stay at the hospital and required to rest while she's getting better. While she's there, she meets a group of patients who have been staying there for a long time, several older folks and a young girl who's been hospitalized for over a year. Sue transforms into an idol nurse combination and sings a song for the ward, convincing the little girl to take her medicine in the process. She overexerts herself by doing this and is required to stay in the hospital for another month. I'm not sure if the moral on this one is it's good to help others no matter what, or don't ever bother trying to do anything helpful while you're sick. Episode 8, Korea Soccer Fighting. There's a soccer match between Korea and France that all the school kids are excited for. Leah postures like she's too good to go with them to see it, but in reality she's just too anxious because she thinks that she'll cause their team to lose just by watching, so she sits in front of the TV with her eyes covered. Sue transforms into a cheerleader, double-themed because that's related to Korean football, and inspires the Korean team to victory. There's not much to this one. Episode 9, Happy Summer Vacation. The Sue group has gone to the beach. Leah is very concerned about protecting her skin from the sun, and the others are more concerned with their time at the beach. Bean walks in on the girls changing, which seems gratuitous, and informs them that their boat got destroyed. The vindictive Leah menacingly wields the scissors she used to do the deed and relaxes on the beach. Sue transforms and summons dolphins for them to ride with her singing voice, and Leah accidentally gets a shaped tan line. Episode 10, Sue's Fall Festival. Sue's class is putting on a production of Cinderella for their fall festival. Leah is pissed because Sue is the lead and she's the evil stepmother, even though everyone else recognizes that switching the roles would be a very bad choice. Later on, Leah sabotages the Cinderella costume. Leah sabotaging things with scissors is becoming a theme here, intending to cut it so that the garment fails during the transformation sequence. The play proceeds, and this also seems a little gratuitous, and Sue transforms using her wand into a much more elaborate princess dress, thwarting Leah's sabotage. Episode 11, Cho-hee's Crisis. We finally get the name of Sue's best friend, Cho-hee. The episode begins with the teacher calling Sue and Cho-hee to help after class, and Leah has petty bitch disease as usual and tells Cho-hee that Sue ditched her for a boy. Sue arrives after class and Leah says that Cho-hee already went home. Sue walks away from the school dejected and encounters Cho-hee being mugged. Sue resolves the situation by turning into her pop idol form and doing an impromptu concert, directing everyone's line of sight towards the muggers. They bail, and Sue and Cho-hee quickly reconcile because they realize that Leah is just like that. Episode 12, Bean's Victory. The episode begins with some very overt sugary snacks product placement as Sue contemplates why Bean has been avoidant of her lately. So she settles on the only reasonable option, stalking. It turns out Ben is meeting up with a girl. Sue follows them to his house and bursts in as she thinks she sees them about to kiss. Instead, they're studying. Bean is obligated to tutor his mom's friend's daughter, and was being sneaky earlier because he was trying to get a surprise gift for Sue. However, this girl is still very eager to cozy up to Bean, obligation or not. Episode 13, Starfish Party. Sue is feeling forlorn about Bean and the new girl and encounters an injured cat which she nurses back to health. Later on, she gets a mysterious letter telling her to meet outside in the evening. She does and realizes a little too late that the situation is kind of sketchy. She freaks out and decks Bean, who reveals that he also received the same letter, implied to be magically sent by the cat that Sue healed. Suddenly, the sky is filled with an intense meteor shower and they romantically gaze up at the stars together. They then each wish to always get along with each other. Episode 14, Sue's Dance Battle. The episode begins with Leah in shadow conspiring against Sue with some mysterious bad guys. Later, Sue is confronted by the muggers from earlier, who challenge her to a breakdancing competition. It seems like Sue's in trouble, except she isn't because she has a magic wand that solves any conflict in 3 minutes or less. She then proceeds to give a groundbreaking performance that proves that Koreans can be culturally appropriative too. This animation is kind of fun though. Look at her go! She wins because she's Sue. Moving on. Episode 15, Prince Muhammad. I am already worried. The episode begins on a news report where the anchor says that the young Prince Muhammad is coming to visit Korea. Sue and Leah's agent tell them that they need to appear on a talk show where he meets some girls his age. Leah brags that she'll be the one to win him over. At the show, the prince complains that his palace dancers are much more beautiful, and Sue transforms and gives a groundbreaking performance that proves that Koreans can be culturally appropriative too. The prince declares Sue as his favorite girl and requests that she be his third wife. This is just a throwaway plot, right? Episode 16, Sue's Kidnapping Case. The episode starts with Sue being rushed by a new agent. I guess they dropped that last plot, which is probably for the best. Sue is escorted into a car and... oh god, they didn't drop the plot, they're back. And just like the title says, Sue is kidnapped by the prince and his translator. Bean stops the car and demands that they allow her to go to the concert, which they inexplicably agree to. The prince leaves her an admiring letter and flowers after the show, which Bean angrily trashes. I hope we never see this character again. Episode 17, Absence of Leah. Leah is homesick from school and, oh no, she's got a business dad. Oh no, she's got a business mom. Only her nanny is there to take care of her when she's sick. Huh. This moment is actually pretty effective at developing an explanation for Leah's character, as someone who is constantly lashing out due to a combination of being attention-starved because of chronic emotional neglect, and simultaneously being unwilling to admit that she's struggling with any of this. And with that, it seems like Leah is currently the show's only developed character. All of her friends show up to cheer her up. Sue shows up at the end to question if Leah is going to be less of a bitch after this. Episode 18, Sue's Magic Wand. Sue's running late and, oh no, she's dropped her magic wand. It's picked up by another girl revealed to be Sue's classmate. It's revealed in what I believe is a flashback that this classmate can't sing, but desperately wishes that she could. Today, with the magic wand, she's borrowed Sue's singing voice and gives a perfectly okay performance that everyone is wowed by. The magic power then returns to Sue. Episode 19, Bean's Waffle Pie. There are two possible plot synopses to this one. Let me begin with the straightforward one. Sue and Bean both want a waffle made by Bean's grandma, but there's only one left. Bean distracts Sue and runs off with it. Turns out that this was the last opportunity to get a waffle at all, because Waffle Grandma is sick and can't make any more waffles. Bean is later found working at the waffle stand since he's the only one in his family who can. And Sue decides to help out, and they all get to enjoy some waffles. And here's the second version. Ooh, look at that waffle. Doesn't that waffle look so good? Look, ooh, let's talk about how good and delicious waffles are. Oh my god, there's more waffles, and these ones look even more delicious. Don't you want to go get a waffle right now? This message has been brought to you by High Tie Confectionery. Episode 20, Sue and Bean's Story 2. Sue's classmates are discussing Bean's crush, who happens to be the idol Sue from TV. Sue in her normal form mocks him for this, which he becomes embarrassed about. Later on, Sue is about to be late for a TV performance and transforms. Bean witnesses this and freaks out. Sue is confused because the magic wand is supposed to erase the memory of anyone who sees it in use. As she's trying to explain herself, she trips, spraining her ankle. Bean carries her to the TV performance, preventing her from being late, and the episode ends on a very half-assed cliffhanger about the whole memory wiping situation. Episode 21, Sue the Mermaid. Sue and the gang visit an aquarium that's well known for its dolphin show. They go to see it, but oh no, it's been canceled. Because this wild-caught baby dolphin is too busy literally weeping because of being so homesick. What? Sue turns into a mermaid and sings it a song to inspire it to perform labor for the crowd of humans. Great. Okay, Sue's mermaid form is really cool. It almost makes up for the blatant animal abuse. Episode 22, The Squirrel. This squirrel is pissed off about deforestation and decides to take out his anger on the Sue crew, who have come to the forest to do some foraging, dumping bugs and nuts on them and generally trying to ruin their time. Eventually, they all put up a wildlife feeder with the nuts they've gathered, and the squirrel has a change of heart. Later, after they got the photos from that day developed, they noticed that the squirrel was in the shot posing with them. Episode 23, Diet Problem, Content Warning for Restrictive Eating. Sue is enjoying a chocolate treat, and Leah nags that snacking is going to make her fat. Sue loses a button on her cardigan and concedes that she needs to go on a diet. A couple days later, she passes out during gym class due to skipping too many meals. Bean confronts her in the hospital and says she's perfect the way she is and shouldn't feel compelled to diet to be as skinny as Leah, and then offers to take her out to eat, which he immediately regrets. Episode 24, Sue and the Christmas Elf. In another oddly gratuitous scene, Sue finds a Christmas elf peeping on her in the bathtub. The elf claims to have been spying on her as an order from Santa to figure out whether Sue is a good or bad kid. Sue's mom comes in with a call for her, and it's revealed that only Sue can see the elf. Sue gets on the phone with Cho-hee, and they make plans to make a donation and throw a private concert for a local nursing home. They agree that it would be best if everyone wears a red dress, which Sue realizes that she doesn't own. Under the Christmas tree, a mysterious package has appeared, a red dress for Sue. A note on the gift reveals it's from the elf who rewarded her for her good deeds. I guess making plans to do good deeds counts as a good deed. And reveals that he was, in fact, perving on her in the bathtub. Who is this show for? Episode 25, Queen of the Ice Rink. The episode begins on Leah's impressive skating performance, which causes all the onlookers to applaud. Suddenly, she bumps into a newbie. Furious, she demands all the amateurs leave the ice rink, and that she'll only concede if someone can skate better than her. Sue transforms and blows Leah out of the water with an Olympic-class performance that leaves Leah fully incapacitated. Episode 26, Sue's Star Sign. Sue's getting made up to go on stage and no, this again. The elf appears and said his horoscope told him that he'll achieve something he wants with the help of a friend. Leah shows up and offers Sue a drink, which has literally been spiked. What is with this show and consent issues? Crisis averted, the elf drinks it all up before Sue can touch it. Sue does her concert and Leah is confused why she's not drunk. The elf, meanwhile, has accomplished getting absolutely smashed with the help of a friend, fulfilling his horoscope. Episode 27, Bean's Birthday Gift. Sue asks Bean what he wants for his birthday, and while what he actually wants is a kiss, he says that he'll be happy with any gift so long as it's sincere. Sue tries to make him a sweater, but struggles. At his party, Leah presents him with a huge, expensive gift, a full designer outfit. She then proceeds to mock Sue's poorly crafted handmade sweater, and Sue runs out in tears. Bean catches up to her wearing the sweater she made because he values the sincerity of Sue's gift more than Leah's ostentatiousness. He then gets his real birthday wish, a kiss on the cheek from Sue. Episode 28, We Got Married. Bean and Sue wake up in the same bed together, much to Sue's shock. Bean, however, is calm. They're married, so why wouldn't they be sharing a bed? A photograph on the wall, apparently from Sue and Bean's wedding, affirms this. Bean leans in for a kiss but is too hungry to complete the gesture and sends Sue to perform housewifely duties. Sue fails completely to cook a meal. Wow, this is just like the games. But they laugh it off afterwards. Suddenly, their parents show up, and then Sue wakes up on the couch. She dozed off watching romantic dramas on TV. Episode 29, What Happened at the Fashion Show. Sue attends a fashion show with her friends, and Leah's mom, who is either an important model at or the coordinator of this fashion show, gets news that one of their models is sick and can't make the show. Leah's mom picks Sue to fill in, and Sue, who has apparently never modeled before despite all her experience as a celebrity, is extremely nervous and trips on her high heels. Bean catches her, and everyone applauds at how romantic the whole scene is. Leah is enraged because she's not the center of attention as usual. Episode 30, Sue's Field Trip. This one's got an interesting thumbnail. Sue and pals are having a fun time on a school trip when, there it is, Leah and an unnamed crony are going around pulling pranks. They head off to do some more pranks, and Sue is beckoned by an old woman who asks her to help her with her luggage. Sue does this, struggling with the weight of it, and gets paid by the old woman when they arrive at the bus stop. Leah and her friend arrive to scare the old woman, who immediately reveals her true form as a fox spirit, and that the luggage she was carrying is really a troll boy, and Leah and company are scared themselves. Back with everyone else, Sue notices that her money has turned into leaves and acorns, and realizes that she had an encounter with a trickster spirit. Episode 31, Invisible Sue. Sue approaches a glum and bruised-looking Bean, who reveals that he got in a fight with another boy from class, Chan. Later on, he and Bean are having another confrontation, with Chan being accused of stealing his pencil. Sue slyly grabs Bean's pencil out from Chan's pocket, which causes Chan to run away in embarrassment. Cho-hee tries to point out to Sue that Chan has a crush on her, but Sue remains oblivious. Episode 32, Chan's Letter. Chan decides to ask Sue out on a date, and writes her a letter to do so. His mom barges in, giving him a shopping list for the bookstore after school. Later, Chan hands the heart-folded letter to Sue, and whoops, it's the shopping list. Chan returns home empty-handed and sulks about his screw-up. If you're noticing these summaries are getting shorter, it's because the episode runtimes are too. Episode 33, What Happened at Night. I guess this is the Chan arc. Maybe Bean was getting unfavorable market tests. He's seen lurking outside as the girls from class are having a sleepover. They tell the ghost story, scaring themselves, and get further freaked out when something starts tapping on the window. It's Chan throwing pebbles to get Sue's attention, and he's mortified when everyone comes out to look at him instead of getting Sue one-on-one like he expected. He runs off and has another embarrassing encounter with his mom. Episode 34, Magic Chocolate. Cho-hee has an admirer that isn't mutual, and asks for Sue's help in letting him down gently. To solve this, Sue transforms into a magical chef and creates 2 heart-shaped chocolates, one that increases love and one that decreases love. Sue gives the increased love chocolate to Bean, who hands it off to Chan, who has it taken from him by Leah. Cho-hee's admirer rapidly falls out of love with her, and Leah is shown chasing Chan around. Episode 35, Strawberry Sue. Sue and Leah have a TV show appearance where they're against each other in a strawberry eating competition. Sue's spirit isn't in it because it's her mom's birthday and she wants to go home, but Leah takes it so seriously that Sue stops to be impressed. Unfortunately, there's a worm in one of Leah's berries, and so Sue wins by default. Sue brings home the large supply of strawberries she won, and Sue's mom makes a strawberry cake. Sue, however, is entirely burnt out on strawberries. Episode 36, Rainy Day. John set out on a rainy day to do some grocery shopping and runs into Sue at the store, who's about to step out without an umbrella. Wanting to be chivalrous but too embarrassed to show his face, he steals the Apple mascot's mask to give her his umbrella, and then dashes off, proud of himself for not revealing his identity. Meanwhile, Sue notices the spot on the handle where his name is written and is put off by his weirdness. Episode 37, Banana Boat Trouble. Everybody's at the beach and Chan has his handsome friend in tow. He suggests staging a big moment to capture the heart of his crush and says that he will help. Later, Sue, Leah, Cho-hee, and a now blonde Bean are riding in an inflatable banana boat when the speedboat pulling it runs out of gas. Chan pulls up in a jet ski to save the day, and Leah jumps into his arms. And they both fall into the sea. Episode 38, Sue and Palm Island. Sue's family wins an island getaway, and oh no. Anyways, the family immediately wants to leave Racism Island, but can't because there won't be another boat until the next day. Sue vows to make the island residents happy, and oh no! Episode 39, Halloween Day Trouble. The Sue crew are all dressed up for Halloween, and they go out of their way to do a bit of product placement for Calbee Snacks. They decide to take a group picture, and someone dressed as a ghost volunteers to take the photo. When they arrive at the Halloween party, they realize that the photographer was a real ghost and get spooked. Episode 40, Ace Day. More very specific snack product placement, with Sue trying to establish a tradition where you gift Ace crackers to your friends. Very sneaky, you snack-peddling bastards. But Leah is way too good for Ace crackers. She fakes sick to stay out of gym class and is tempted by the allure of the Ace crackers left out on the desk, and proceeds to eat all of everyone's crackers. This episode is basically just hyper-condensed One More Bite from SpongeBob, minus the... Episode 41, A Suffering. Bean is sick and Sue shows up with a care package, except that bitch from earlier is back and taking care of him before she could. They attempt to compete with each other about who can better take care of him, and rip his sleeves off in the process. The girls are so obsessed with competing with each other that they leave him looking haggard and worse than he was before. Episode 42, A Breathtaking Live Broadcast. Sue and her agent are running late for a New Year's broadcast, but are stopped in the street by a couple, of which the woman is in labor. Sue insists that they take them to the hospital, despite this making them even more late, and Sue eventually makes it to the broadcast, excusing her lateness by congratulating the couple she helped earlier on their lucky New Year's baby. Sue and Bean then wish everyone a happy New Year's 2010. Episode 43, The Snow Festival. Sue gets tasked with shoveling the walkway and starts getting pelted with toys as she does. She discovers and yells at the perpetrator, who reveals herself to be a sick little girl who just wants to look at the beautiful snow since she can't go out and play. Sue then uses her magic wand to create several elaborate snow sculptures, which delight the little girl and the other townspeople. Sue's mom informs her that she's still on the hook for cleaning all of that up. Episode 44, The Spring Festival. The girls are participating in an art competition, and Leah wants to win as usual. She attempts to forbid anyone else from drawing the same patch of flowers as her, but everyone else ignores her. When she realizes that the others' drawings are turning out better than hers, after they leave to go to the bathroom, she sabotages the scene by picking all the flowers. Sue uses her wand to make even more flowers grow back in their place. It kind of seems like this wand can just do whatever she wants now, and Leah gets attacked by bees. Episode 45, From the Sky. Sue is feeling lousy from the changing weather, and Cho-hee suggests that she go to the nurse's office to sleep it off. Chan walks in and... No! Sue is dreaming of eating delicious snacks that happen to be sold by High Tide Confectionery when a big purple monster descends upon her, demanding her sweets. She cold clocks the monster, who happened to actually be Chun. Episode 48, Sue gets lost. Sue is at a fair with her parents and gets separated from them in a crowd, accidentally grabbing the hand of a little kid. Sue, inspired by the kid's balloon, transforms into a clown with a hot air balloon. This way they're able to quickly identify where their parents are and reunite. The kid is an ungrateful little brat afterwards, which pisses off Sue. Episode 47, Leah's Love. The episode opens on Leah rejecting this new boy who professes his admiration of her tsundere personality for the others. Sue transforms into her magical chef form and creates some cookies which will cause whoever eats it to fall in love with whoever they see first. Leah accepts the cookies and eats one, but a cat jumps in front of her field of view, leaving the boy disappointed and Leah cancelled Shane Dawson style. Episode 48, Waterslide Battle. They're at a waterslide park this time, and the gang's mission is to get Leah and the boy, now identified as Hyuk, closer together. Sue gets Leah to go down a waterslide, and Hyuk chickens out at the last minute because he's afraid of heights. Leah, frustrated, pushes him down the slide, and he clings onto her and they tumble together down the waterslide. Hyuk afterwards lovingly admires an awkward photograph of the two of them. Considering how previous episodes could tend towards fan service moments, I appreciate that this one was cute and innocent. Episode 29, What Happened at Cura. Sue and family are on another family trip. It's bound to be a good one this time. This pale-fanged man invites them into an old, creepy mansion, and the family is generally unsettled by the vibe of the place. They encounter an actually pretty unsettling woman dragging a cupboard on her back and begin the usual "we've got to get out of here" spiel until they hear the sounds of what sounds like their hosts planning to murder a hostage. It turns out the woman was just bringing in a new storage unit and the man was just trying to butcher a chicken. As they bring the meal out to Sue's family, they've long since escaped. Episode 50, A Funny Songpyeon. Sue and Bean are hosting a traditional Korean-themed programming block, and Leah is angry because she's been paired with a comedian. Leah prepares a songpyeon that will induce uncontrollable laughter and plans to give it to Sue, but aborts her own plan after Sue hands off the laugh-inducing treat to Bean. Leah laments her foiled prank and finds the comedian eating her songpyeon, who then stuffs the rest in her mouth. Sue and Bean find the pair laughing uncontrollably, and then the Sue web series ends for good. I went into that segment worrying, oh no, what if this part is boring? Now I'm coming out of it wishing to God that it was much more boring because it was interesting for all the wrong reasons. Beyond a couple cute or interesting plot lines, transformations, and outfits, the standout moments of the Avata Star Sue web series are the things that made me yell, "Why is this here? Who is this for? Why am I seeing this?" I understand that a lot of these are anime tropes, and some viewers will probably think I'm a prude for this, but I just feel like people who make content specifically for children should cool it with the bait. It's just so weird. It's not like I have anything against these tropes being employed in animation or with the idea of animation being geared for adults, but that is not what this is. Avata Star Sue is specifically meant to be for little girls. There is not a ton of demographic spread here. And so again, my question remains, who is this for? At least it wasn't consistently weird. It was mostly middling, sometimes genuinely interesting, and was compelling enough with its well-designed characters and world to do what the show was designed to do, get kids more interested in the universe of this franchise. And considering the things being made on Flash in the 2000s, I really should have anticipated the weirder aspects. However, it's still bizarre coming from an officially licensed snack food mouthpiece. The thing with Bean being able to see her transformations is never, ever addressed again. Actually, their entire romance is kind of a dropped plot. Despite how much this web series focused around ship narratives, they didn't bother to resolve even one of them. The most you get is that Sue and Bean are still working with each other in a professional capacity. In fact, the whole memory erasure plot point completely falls apart at closer inspection because Bean is portrayed as simultaneously fully knowing about and being unaware of Sue's second life as a pop idol and TV personality. Pretty much every time this series teased a plot event with long-term implications, the thread is dropped entirely in 1 or 2 episodes. This reflects an issue that plagues many sitcoms, web series or not, which I call status quo syndrome. Any event with lasting consequences is unexisted by the following episode, resulting in a perfectly safe series that will never alienate its audience because any episode could be episode 1. This works in a short, self-contained series, but starts to feel frustrating in the type of sitcom that isn't written to ever have an end. And I would say that the Sue web series falls into this indefinite episode count kind of narrative style. I can't say what iBravo's intentions with the Sue web series were, but this series just feels incomplete to me. There's no sense of finality, it just kind of ends. The merchandise. You can't have a successful kids franchise without some tie-in merchandise. Let's do a bit of searching on these Korean secondhand sites to see what kind of Sue items are available. The first thing that stands out is the main line of Sue dolls, which were featured on one of the Flash games. As the game indicates, each portion of the body snaps on to create a complete figure. The discrete parts seem to be the head, hair plus ponytail types on the standard Sue hair, top with arms, bottoms which either end at the knee or are fully sculpted down to the shoes, and shoes which attach at the knee to the first type of bottoms. These figures stand up using a provided base. Conveniently, there's a product guide here so we can see the dolls that were available at the time. Oh my god, I really want the blue winter one. How adorable. The main issue with the design of this type of doll is that it really discourages any skin tone diversity, because you can't mix and match the clothes however you want unless all of the visible skin is the same shade. They're pretty dang cute though, albeit pretty impossible to find in the States, and I would guess difficult to find in Korea. Some other Sue merchandise includes furniture items for the doll figures, stationery like journals and stickers and this stapler, as well as paper dolls. Sue was so successful at the time that she didn't just have official merchandise, but bootleg toys too. There's this denim purse featuring close but no cigar mascot Princess Avatar. There's also this camera featuring a very familiar looking pink-haired girl, plus what appears to be bootleg Barbie. I wish I could find some more of these bootlegs, but my ability to search for these things is limited. And that's about all the useful information I could gather about Sue merchandise. Before we wrap up, let's take a little look at Sue's unsuccessful successor, Little Patissier Sue. iBravo, not eager to abandon its most successful IP after its star began to fade, chose to revitalize the brand by rebooting it into Little Patissier Sue, a new web series. While I'm not going to recap these episodes, sorry if that's a disappointment to you, but just pass. I'll watch for long enough to figure out what the show's deal is. Here's how the show goes. Sue encounters a problem, Sue solves the problem with baking sweets, and repeat until the series ends. You could say that the Sue webisodes are similarly formulaic, but that element of the magic wand inherently creates a lot of variety to the outcomes of these conflicts. This web series seems very single-note and minimally engaging, and seems to only generate appeal by being cute and tasty looking. Just by looking at Sue, I think it's understandable why the series flopped. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with these designs. Out of context, that is. However, when you frame something as a reboot of a pre-existing series, it's inevitably going to draw comparisons to the original. And this just isn't Sue. She has the buns and that's it. No pink hair, no Chibiusa copycat wand, no idol transformations, just a very normal-looking girl who bakes. The fact that this is Sue branded at all is really silly to me. It may have not been so poorly received if it had just been its own standalone property, but I think framing it as a reboot is inconsiderate to the spirit of the original IP, and therefore repulsive to fans of the original series. It's too bad that iBravo had their oops phase right before Flash faded out of widespread use, cause now little boring Patissier Sue is now their last attempt at a mascot character. In the simplest of terms, Sue was to iBravo as Barbie was to Mattel. She is a mascot designed to represent a little girl's imagined self-perception and to drum up sales for its parent company. In terms of her actual character, I would liken her more closely to Polly Pocket than to Barbie. Like Polly, she's a kid in school with a double life as a superstar, and her character isn't very well established except that she's rich, famous, beautiful, everyone likes her except petty jealous biatches, and she always deserves to win no matter what. She's a perfect little girl's power fantasy. One could call her, Mary Sue? Sue is the centerpiece of this fantasy, and everyone else exists to prop her up as the perfect heroine of this universe. Leah never stops being vindictive and cruel, so you can always picture her as your enemy. Cho-hee never gets any wants or convictions of her own, so you can always picture her as your own best friend. And the boys, well, would you rather have the slow burn childhood romance, or the cool shy boy who longs for you from afar? Or even Prince Bishy, you get to choose. Fundamentally, Sue is you. Sue has a magical wand that can get her anything she wants, and so you have a magic wand that gets you anything you want to play with in your imagination. It's a simple, well-understood, and enticing mental framework that kids are eager to latch onto. It's a tried and true concept that has been rehashed again and again since the birth of children's toy marketing, and Sue just happened to capture an underserved regional market while at the same time creating an aesthetic appeal that is much more broadly reaching. Sue may not be highbrow media, or, in retrospect, even that great as works of kids media. However, you can't deny that there's just something about the character that really, really works. If it didn't, I wouldn't have been able to talk about her for as long as I just did. In my opinion, this boils down mostly to the art style. Sue games and graphics look incredible, and while there can be mixed production values in the webisodes, they're also pretty nice looking and polished for a kid's web series. In my opinion, Sue makes perfect use of the Flash style, being perfectly identifiable as Flash, but not because of all the visible seams and loose ends, but rather because of a mastery of vector graphics. There was some real love and effort put into these games. Maybe not so much age-appropriate playtesting, but a lot of love. And that was my look back at the Avata Star Sue franchise. Leave me a comment with what you think about Sue. Are the games as difficult as I claim them to be? Were you as weirded out by some bits in the web series as I was? Let me know. Next time I'm going to be returning to virtual worlds. There are a lot of shuttered sites to cover because around 2010, just about every kids franchise in the world was operating a virtual world. A lot of these have limited documentation, which leaves me with a question for all of you. So which would you prefer? Shorter videos on specific virtual worlds, or more 30-minute-ish videos with about 3 virtual worlds per episode? Vote now on your phones, or on your computer, by leaving me a comment. Okay, bye.
Shoo-be-doo-be-doo-ba, sha-la-la-la, la-la. Shoo-be-doo-be-doo-ba, sha-la-la-la, la-la. 내 이름이 슈, 내 이름이 슈, 슈, 슈.